After all, installing an operating system as a newcomer is scary and fraught with missteps and frustration. But Arch and other Linux families are not intended for Linux newcomers. Plus, the scripted installations are more like a patchwork of segmented batch commands initiated with command line interactions in a terminal window. This is not very user-friendly. Autotux, on the other hand, fully automates an installation of the Debian 10 Linux system. What else could any newcomer to the Linux operating system want or need? How about out-of-the-box performance and a fully stocked software inventory? Well, Autotux has that covered too. Autotux, it goes a long way to adopting Linux, a no-brainer for Windows and macOS converts. A fully automated Linux distribution that is literally a hands-off event from start to finish. Samsung has already started talking about 6G. In a report released Tuesday, the South Korean electronics giant reveals its 6G vision of the future, including technical and societal megatrends, new services, requirements, candidate technologies, and an expected timeline of standardization. While 5G commercialization is still in its initial stage, it's never too early to start preparing for 6G because it typically takes around 10 years from the start of research to commercialization of a new generation of communications technology, Sung-Hyun Choi, head of Samsung's Advanced Communications Research Center, explained in a statement. In its report, Samsung predicted that earliest commercialization of 6G could occur as early as 2028, with mass commercialization taking place roughly 2 years after that. Although many people haven't wrapped their minds around 5G mobile technology yet. While 5G commercialization is still in its initial stage, it's never too early to start preparing for 6G because it typically takes around 10 years from the start of research to commercialization of a new generation of communications technology, Sung-Hyun Choi, head of Samsung's Advanced Communications Research Center, explained in a statement. In its report, Samsung predicted that earliest commercialization of 6G could occur as early as 2028, with mass commercialization taking place roughly 2 years after that. Leaving 5G in the dust. Samsung also sees the technology taking a huge performance leap over 5G networks, which are currently barely getting off the ground. Peak data rates for 6G will be 1000 gigabits per second, or about 50 times that of 5G, and air latency, the time between when an instruction is issued and when it's performed, of 100 microseconds, or 1/10 the latency of 5G. The goals of 6G will be to take 5G to the next level of magnitude on bandwidth and latency.
Have you ever wanted to see how your swing compares to the best in the game? By recording your swing with the V1 Golf app, you can compare yours against the pros and use a full suite of tools to analyze exactly what you need to work on. Golf is no exception. Technology can be used to make aspects of this popular and challenging sport less difficult and frustrating, and more rewarding and enjoyable. For example, during the coronavirus lockdown, many golfers continue to practice their game on high-tech training equipment such as in-home golf simulators. The app equips golfers with a full range of video tools, including the ability to send your videos to your instructor and receive voice-over video lessons with evaluations from your pro. If you don't currently have a coach, you can connect with one of several thousand pros who teach with the V1 Sports Network. Most golfers will find value in the V1 Golf app, but it will be especially valuable for players who are looking for consistent feedback from their instructors and aren't always playing their home courses. For younger players and aspiring pros that are on the road playing competitively in tournaments, updated instruction while away from home is a big benefit. The app also works well for those who travel often or can't always make time for an in-person lesson with their instructor. On the flip side, golfers who are at their home course often and have the ability to see their instructor frequently on an in-person basis won't see much benefit from this app's technological edge. Additionally, for players who aren't tech-savvy, the ability to grasp and benefit from the capabilities of the app will likely not be realized. V1 Golf is available as a free download from the App Store and Google Play. In-app purchases are offered. Comes to know on web sources that Microsoft Teams will be the de facto standard for video collaboration. It has been an exciting and somewhat painful technology to watch because it seemed like everyone in the segment fundamentally didn't understand that if you don't have interoperability and didn't focus on ease of use, it wouldn't work. I mean, we seemed to grasp that telephones had to work with each other, and video conferencing was a phone with video. But for some screwy reason, the companies that brought the technology to market seemed to think that if you didn't interoperate, you could make more money. Some of those old systems cost as much as US $250,000 to install and over $10,000 per month to keep running, even though they were relatively rarely used because they didn't frickin' interoperate. Meaning, vendor A's system wouldn't work with vendor B's offering. Fortunately, that changed before the outbreak of COVID-19 as we moved to software clients that could run on smartphones and PCs. We still don't have interoperability, but at least we don't have to buy expensive hardware with limited use. Now, I do a lot of calls with vendors, and initially they were on a variety of programs like Linksys, Zoom, WebEx, etc. But recently the Zoom calls have dropped off a cliff. ON24 has become the noticeable audience favorite for significant events, and Cisco's WebEx seems to have taken over healthcare and some government. Still, Microsoft Teams has come out of left field to pretty much cover everything else.
This is a great headline maker, added, but the reality is I can still search for Spy app and they're still going to come up in my Google search results. Google clamps down on ads for spyware, stalkerware and malware. Miller maintained Google's new policy is looking beyond malicious persons. What Google is responding to is the realization that these apps are being used not only by individuals who have malicious intent, but also criminal enterprises, especially when you start talking about apps that allow you to follow and track an individual's movements and see content on their devices without their knowing about it, she said. That's a very slippery slope into some very dangerous privacy territory that Google doesn't want anything to do with, she added. Software for spying and stalking people is a very serious problem, observed David Ruiz, a blogger for Malwarebytes Labs, a cybersecurity software maker based in Santa Clara, California. The capabilities of these types of apps are nearly limitless. They can pull text messages, emails, and call logs, reveal sensitive photos and videos, expose web browsing history, and pinpoint a person's GPS location, he told Tech News World. In the hands of an abuser, he continued, these types of apps could make safety planning for a survivor extremely difficult, dismantling their attempts to privately call a domestic abuse hotline, find help from a friend or family member, or to physically escape. How IBM maintains AI leadership. IBM is chasing two of the three technology areas that will change the world as we know it over the next 2 decades. Granted, we are currently experiencing a level of unprecedented change, thanks to the pandemic, and it is dramatically accelerating at least one of these efforts: computing and quantum computing. IBM's focus has been on the AI, Watson, and quantum computing efforts. I got an update on their initially targeted at the healthcare segment and focused on making a difficult diagnosis. I still recall their first public validation test. They took a problem that had stumped doctors for years regarding a woman who had strange symptoms and an undiagnosed painful disease. In 15 minutes it might have been the humor that got Watson into trouble. But it did give me a sense of what a future digital assistant might be able to accomplish. Sustained vast improvement has also forced them to rethink component interconnect as well as create a new memory type. This memory type has elements that are surprisingly similar to Intel's Optane product, but with what appears to be far higher density and performance more in line with IBM's AI efforts. Outcome of this $2 billion 7-year effort is a 300K performance per watt increase over the period. With this enormous performance increase, the things that an AI will shortly be able to do should expand exponentially. The solutions will still be gated by necessary training, but IBM has also been working to reduce training time and cost aggressively.